So, when you see this symbol, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Death, right? Total destruction. But for sailors back in the 18th century, the infamous skull and crossbones, well, it wasn't a death sentence. It was actually the opposite. It was a choice. And understanding that choice is the key to unpacking the brutal but kind of brilliant business strategy behind the golden age of piracy. All right, let's get right into it. During the peak of piracy, we're talking roughly 1650 to 1720, a pirate flag wasn't just some scary decoration they ran up the mast for fun. No, no. It was a sophisticated tool. It was communication. It was psychological warfare. The pirates we all know and love, Blackbeard, Black Bart, they were basically running a business, and their flags, they were their single most important asset. You know, the funny thing is, it didn't even start with the skull and bones. The very first pirate flags were just plain black banners, a pretty universal symbol for death. But then, right around the year 1700, a French parent named Emmanuel Wynne had a big idea. He added the skull and bones, sure, but he also added an hourglass. And that little addition changed the entire message. It went from just, we're gonna kill you, to something much more terrifying. Your time to decide is running out. To really get why that message was so important, you have to understand the pirates' biggest problem. We all have these images of epic cannon battles and crazy sword fights, right? But for a real pirate crew, a fight was an absolute disaster. A good day at the office for them meant zero combat. None. So why is that?
Well, because fighting was just plain bad for business. Just look at the risks here. If you damage the cargo, it's worth less money. If you put a bunch of cannon holes in the ship you're trying to steal, it might sink before you even get it to port. Wounded pirates can't work, and dead pirates, well, they don't get a share of the treasure. It all came down to this. Pirates wanted to get the prize with the least amount of risk and the least amount of effort. They needed a way to convince people to just give up.
And they did. They developed a brutally effective system to do exactly that. It was a simple two-color code that every single sailor on the high seas understood and absolutely feared. This was the real pirate code. And this right here explains the entire strategy. The black flag, the Jolly Roger, that was the offer. It meant, look, surrender your ship and your cargo right now, and we will let you live. It was the warning shot. The red flag, on the other hand, that was the verdict. It was called the bloody flag, and it meant all options were off the table. It was a clear, cold declaration that no mercy would be shown and no one would be left alive. The term they used for the red flag's promise was no quarter. Now, this wasn't just some pirate slang they made up. It was a well-known military term from that era. It was a formal declaration of total annihilation. When sailors saw that red flag go up, they knew with chilling certainty that surrendering was no longer an option. Their fate was completely sealed. So you've got this basic two-flag system, but the most successful pirate captains, they took it and they personalized it. They built these terrifying brands around their flags so that their reputation would do all the fighting for them, long before their ship ever even appeared on the horizon. And of course, when you talk about pirate branding, there is no better example than the infamous Edward Teach, who we all know better as Blackbeard. Reports from newspapers back in the 1700s describe this terrifyingly effective strategy that he used with his entire fleet of ships. See, Blackbeard wouldn't just fly one flag. His main ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, would fly the black flags with the skulls. But his smaller, faster attack ships sailing alongside him, they would fly the red, no-quarter flags. The message was unmistakable. Surrender peacefully to the big ship offering mercy, or get run down and slaughtered by the vessels promising absolutely none. And by the way, that famous image of a devil spearing a heart? Probably a later legend. The reality was actually much more strategically terrifying. Another absolute master of this was Bartholomew Roberts, or Black Bart. He was one of the most successful pirates of the entire era, and he used his flag to send a very personal and very public message of vengeance. I mean, just look at this flag. It's incredibly specific. It shows Roberts himself standing on two skulls. The initials below them, ABH and AMH, stood for a Barbadian's head and a Martinucan's head. This was a direct threat to the governors of those two islands, who were his sworn enemies. Can you even imagine being a merchant from Barbados and seeing this flag pop up over the horizon? Then you have Stede Bonnet, the so-called gentleman pirate. This guy was a wealthy landowner who just decided to become a pirate one day.
And his flag is maybe the most direct visual representation of the entire pirate offer. His flag basically lays out the entire business model in one simple image. You've got the skull up top that represents death, the ultimate consequence, but below it, you have a dagger on one side and a heart on the other, balanced on a bone. The message could not be clearer. Choose the dagger by fighting, and you will get death. Choose the heart by surrendering, and you will get life. It's the entire pirate strategy right there on a piece of cloth. So, okay, it all sounds great in theory. These scary flags, this terrifying brand, but did all this psychological warfare actually work? Well, the historical record is crystal clear. This system of fear was devastatingly effective. It let pirates capture ships and even entire harbors without firing a single shot. Just take this number, 22. In 1720, Black Bart Roberts sailed into Trepassey Harbor in Newfoundland with his black flags flying high. The mere sight of them, combined with his fearsome reputation, was enough. The crews of all 22 ships in that harbor just panicked and abandoned their vessels. He captured an entire fleet without a fight. And that wasn't a one-off thing. The logs of merchant captains from that time are filled with accounts just like this. They describe how seeing that flag on the horizon was often enough to cause their own crews to abandon ship in sheer terror. I mean, resisting a pirate crew who had absolutely nothing to lose, it just wasn't a rational choice. So the typical attack followed a very clear script. First came deception. The pirates would approach flying the flag of a friendly nation just to get close. Then came the offer. Once they were within cannon range, they'd lower the false colors and hoist the black flag. This was the moment of choice. And if the target chose to fight, then came the consequence. The black flag came down and the red flag went up. The offer of mercy was officially revoked. So you see, when we talk about the pirate code, we shouldn't be thinking about parchment rules for sharing treasure. The real code, the one that governed life and death on the high seas, was this brutally efficient system of communication. This slide just sums up the whole thing perfectly. The goal was always maximum profit for minimum risk. The method was intimidation, not combat. Their number one tool was a simple, visual language that everyone understood. And the result? One of the most efficient and terrifying business models in history. And it's fascinating when you contrast this with the official navies of the time. Naval flag systems were complex, they were rigid, they were used for battlefield coordination. The pirate system was the complete opposite. It was improvised, purely psychological, and it had only one goal: to terrorize the target into submission as quickly as possible. There were no rules, only results. So, the most important thing to take away from all this is simple. The Jolly Roger was never a declaration of war. In its own strange, brutal way, it was actually the last chance for peace. The real declaration of war, well, that was the red flag that came after. Which brings us to a final thought for you. Put yourself on the deck of that ship. It's 1720, you're a merchant captain, and you see that black flag rise up on the horizon. What's going through your mind? What factors would you weigh in those few precious moments before you had to decide whether to fight or surrender? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this explainer. If you found this slice of history as fascinating as I did, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel for more.